Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. Today I'm joined by Michelle from Orange County, California. She's a little bit south of me, and I have actually met Michelle in person. One of the few drivers that I meet in person last year at Curbivore, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do it again this year. But her story is really, really compelling. Specifically, the switch that he did from a full-time W-2 worker to a full-time gig worker, and we're going to all hear about it and how that transition is going. Michelle, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I love the hair, by the way.
Thanks. It's a bit of
Uh,
an odd to my rebellious streak.
I don't know. We all have those episodes, as you know. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you did before, and what you're doing these days.
Okay, so I'm currently 54 years old, so I got a little bit of experience under my belt. I've kind of off and on had self-employed and W-2 corporate work over the years. I worked for family for probably about a good 25 years. My mom had a metal shop and my dad was an appraiser. So I've been in the appraisal industry for a long time. I did his data entry and ran his office. And once their businesses kind of were winding down, I went back into a corporate type job, W-2 job, with an appraisal management company. And they're kind of the middleman between the lender and the appraiser. And I was there for 7 years and had a as good as an experience in a corporate environment as you can have. The people I worked with were lovely, but due to economy circumstances and lots of other stuff, the company was bought out. And at the time, I just decided that I didn't want to participate in what was coming next. You know, they let go of like 25 people. We were a small company. Like in one shot, there was just a lot of chaos coming that at this point in my life I didn't want to participate in anymore. I've been driving Uber and doing gig work part time for 9.5 years. I started out with Lyft back in the day when we still had the pink mustaches on the car. And, when you're getting maybe one ride an hour.
Yeah.
So I've ridden the wave of, just under $3 a mile to when they switched to the upfront pricing, which here was 64 cents a mile.
Yeah, well,
So,
we'll talk a little bit about that later. But
yeah.
initially, so you've been on these platforms, a couple of them anyway, for 9.5 years. I mean, that's practically when they all started, right?
Pretty
And
sure.
yeah, and so you did it part-time, adding it to your income from your family office or W-2, other W-2 jobs.
Yeah.
What made you decide finally to go all out to gig work?
Some of it had to do with the fact of what I did before the corporate job, the fact that I was more in charge of my own schedule by being able to work for family, and I could, kind of basically, I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
So that played a big part in it. And the freedom, and also too, I'm a little, I get bored with things really easy, so having the option of multiple platforms, I think I'm on 6 or 7 at the moment. I've done everything from Postmates, Doordash, Amazon Flex, a lot of the ability to pivot if
Yeah.
one is not busy and the other, and just kind of be able to do a little bit of everything. And I knew that as if I was my success was going to be determined on how hard I was willing to work, and I knew I could outgrind everybody. So for me, that's why gig work is works for me,
Okay.
because I know.
You said you're on 6 or 7 platforms. Like, give us an overview of what they are and what your go-tos are, and obviously your rideshare as well as delivery. So you have a whole bunch of these platforms or apps in your basket, right? Or we call it, as many tools as possible in your toolbox, because as we know, you could get fired or so-called deactivated from any of these platforms for any other reason. And so tell us what your arsenal is and then what your go-tos are.
And I'm sure, I'm a little nervous, so I'm sure I'm going to wind up forgetting something, but
That's
it's
okay.
Uber, Lyft, Amazon Flex, Walmart Spark, Shipped. I am in the process of trying to get onboarded with Hop Skip Drive, which that's an interesting process, but I get why they need to do it because you're dealing with children.
Yeah,
So
my wife is on Hop, Skip, and Drive. It took her literally maybe over 2.5 months because they not only they do a fingerprint check, they do FBI check, they do a drug test, they do all kinds of things. So
yeah,
the process is a lot longer than what it is with the other apps. So you're on
yeah,
6 or 7 different apps. What is your go-to these days? Like, what is, I'm not going to say favorite because to me, favorite is who pays you most. So,
yeah.
uh,
So
right.
I've always leaned pretty heavily on Uber. It just in my experience as doing rideshare, and really don't do delivery very much anymore, other than, as far as like food delivery, to what my delivery experience is Spark or Flex.
Okay.
Um, but Uber is the kind of the foundation of all of it. I'll use Lyft as needed. It just seemed to make more money in my particular market with Uber. There's just a higher volume of requests that come through,
Yeah.
but I'm not opposed to using Lyft as needed. Like last year when they redid my background check, it took Uber a week.
Yeah.
And so the fact that, so I'm not making no money, I flipped over. And sometimes Lyft, because I disappear for so long,
Yeah.
will send me some pretty decent incentives. So then I'll hop
Yeah.
on, got that incentive, and then bye-bye.
Yeah, that's how they do it. You have to make them miss you, and you're in perfect situation to do that with their 6 or 7 apps of yours, and you really, really have to make them miss you because you know it should be the other way around, right? The more you work, the more they should award you, but then the
Yeah.
more you work, the less they award you with these rideshare companies because they know you're going to work, and they go,
Yeah.
"Why should I even send Michelle any incentives? I don't have to. She's working 40 hours a week anyway." And
Yeah.
it's kind of backwards. It really is, like with everything else they do. But while we're talking about Lyft and rideshare, as you know, they announced something about a month ago, which we talked about, which is, and you said you drive drunk hours or late night hours.
Pretty much
They
exclusive.
said that they were going to match female passengers with female drivers. What do you think about that? And do you think you're going to get more business now?
Considering the ratio, I think, of male to female drivers is still heavily skewed male.
Yeah,
I actually am in favor of it. There was a startup that tried to get in the game a few years ago called was it C Jane Go? It was something with Jane in it, and they just
right.
never were able to get off the ground. And it was focused on female passengers and female drivers. And to the fact that I do drive a lot of late nights, I get a lot of female passengers that are like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you're a
Yeah,
female driver. I don't have to worry about some, creepy weirdo,
yeah,
making me feel uncomfortable."
yeah,
So I'm actually interested to see how that's going to go. And if they're able to make it work, I think it's going to serve a portion of their customer base that um, will make them very brand loyal. So I think it's a smart thing to do. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened sooner, but I kind of get some of the underlying reasons why not.
yeah.
So if they can make it work, I think it's a good thing. And I do think it will, for female drivers, potentially increase, the amount of opportunities ride wise that we'll get. So, I'm kind of being a little cautiously optimistic about it, but I think if they can make it work, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. But as you correctly stated, the density of the female drivers, specifically at 9 hours, is very, very low. It's like less than
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah.
But it's a test pilot program in 5 cities. Hopefully, they'll bring it to LA and Orange County, where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, I think it's a good idea. Let's pivot a little bit because you said you like pivoting, right? So
Yeah.
give me a little bit about your typical day. Like how many hours you work a week, a day? Do you have a daily dollar goal when you get out of the house? And also give us a little bit of what kind of car you drive and what year. Tell us a little bit about these.
So the majority of the time that I was doing rideshare, I had a Scion XB and was pretty much doing X. And 2 years ago, I made the switch because I wanted to be able to do other forms of, XL comfort. Since I don't do Lyft much, I'm not sure what categories they have at the moment, but I wanted to expand my opportunities. So I have a 2020 Toyota Highlander hybrid,
Wow. Okay.
and I've been really happy with it, and it's been really good. The third row on that thing is a little difficult to get into. I had been looking at the Sienna, but because I kind of wanted to stick with Toyota. But at the time that I bought, there just wasn't a lot of availability. So it's been good. I've pretty much been able to do most of the versions of Uber, with the exception, obviously, of like Black,
Yeah.
and not too much interested in that. So mostly my day is, it depends on, what time I get up, depends on how late I was out the night before. Um, and I've been the last month-ish, I've been actually starting out with Walmart Spark during the day.
Okay.
Had done Spark towards the end of last year, but was spending a lot of time in between requests. And so I kind of pivoted more into Amazon Flex, further during the day, because I really don't get a lot of the Uber deliveries, and the ones that I get are like an insult, to be
Yeah.
honest. And it's just like,
Specifically, the
no.
ones, especially the ones from Walmart. I have one near my house. Oh boy, I get these like 10 deliveries for like $14. I'm like, how am I supposed to even do this?
Yeah, and yeah, kind of what with like Uber Eats, what I was getting was like $3, including tip,
Yeah.
for like 20-minute delivery. I'm like, no.
No.
So, but lately though, Walmart Spark, like I've been averaging, granted, I'm picking the 10, 12 deliveries that are like the box stuff.
Yeah.
I will do the shopping because I've done Instacart, and I actually like Instacart too, but um uh I like the one that I did yesterday, I think was $47 for
Wow.
basically about an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a lot of those in the middle of the day. It's like between noon and 5. So it's actually been pretty good. And then I typically switch over into rideshare at about 5:30 in the afternoon. Because that's kind of when the market here starts to pick up as far as people going home. And then that's when I start to see like the LAX airport rides, which depending on my mood, which is the lovely thing about gig work,
Yeah. Yeah.
the mood and the offer, sometimes I will go ahead and take the LAX rides. And then, I do have to admit, I'm still figuring out the full-time aspect of this. I haven't had to pay attention to
Yeah.
some of the strategies when I was doing the W-2 work
Yeah.
because it was filler income.
Yeah.
But now I'm having to be a little bit more, as we love to say, cherry picking, and try to make sure that what I'm doing makes sense for me,
Yeah.
cost and what I need to make. And for me, when I go out, I do have a dollar total that I'm trying to hit for the day.
Okay.
So I haven't been as successful as I would like to be in hitting that every day, but I'm getting closer to it, and I'm kind of learning the ways to piece that together.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I do have to admit I'm doing a little more dead miling, from the LAX rides than I would like to at the end of the night.
yeah.
But the destination filter and I have a love-hate relationship. And and so,
Welcome to the
sometimes
club.
just yeah, it's just better for me to turn it off and drive home depending on where I'm at.
Yeah. At some point, what we'll do is we'll talk about the destination filter on
Yeah.
our channel because there's been a lot of requests saying that, yeah, I said it and it sends me the other way. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
because
technically, I guess with the algorithm, once you do the pickup, if
yeah,
the direction that it's sending you is towards your destination, that counts.
yeah,
But it'll send you farther away to come back the same
yep,
direction, and you
yep,
wind up in this loop doing
yeah,
this.
100%. And the other thing is a lot of people set the destination filter incorrectly. They use it
Mm.
incorrectly. And we'll have a session, one-on-one session about that. And then I'll explain to you how to not trick it, but to utilize it better.
Oh,
So
that'd be fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're all here to help each other, right? So, I've suffered enough. Why should you suffer? So,
Well, that's the beauty of the rideshare guy and you and Chris and everybody that's on there is it's incredibly generous, the amount of time that you guys give and the amount of information that you give. And, I know there's a lot of people that, are, give you guys kudos, but I still don't think it's enough. I think it's
yeah,
amazing that
but you know what it is though. If you build it, they will come, right? And we built it, and look, we're having CEOs now on. I mean, Otherwise, why would they come, right? They know we have a voice now that's
Yeah.
loud, and they have to listen to it. And if we can make some changes, specifically with this upfront fare thing that's been going on. But what caught my attention, is that when you were doing this as a part-time office worker, as a side hustle,
Yeah.
you just didn't care, right? You were basically what we call, an ant, right?
Yes.
You were just out there to make a couple hundred extra bucks a week. Now, again, I think we're going to call this episode the pivot lady, because you pivot constantly from being an ant to not being a cherry picker because you're full time now. And from one app to the next app to the next app, you're constantly during the day pivoting as well. So, tell me a little bit about what that transition has been like, from just accepting everything to just paying attention now to your costs, to your cost per mile. And I know you keep track of these things. So how's that transition going? I mean, has it been a difficult one not to accept everything?
Yes. Yes. Because I started so early with the ride shares, it's kind of a Pavlovian thing, and it was really hard to break that cycle of got to accept everything, got to accept everything. And, I've been learning along the way how to break out of that mindset and start to pay more attention to, is this ride going to be profitable for me? Not just, am I going to make a couple of bucks off it? And I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think, probably if, my acceptance rating, I hate, probably shouldn't say it out loud, but it's somewhere in the 50% range. So, and I went from, almost 100% so I'm a work in progress, and I'm still learning. For me, sometimes it's a little overwhelming. You've got a passenger in the car, you've got a trip request coming in, you're trying to, math is not my strong point, trying to do the mental math in the 8 seconds you have to decide whether I'm going to take that ride or not. So I'm definitely a work in progress. And I'm getting better at being able to identify those trips that are profitable. The spreadsheet gets a little overwhelming for me sometimes, and it's hard for me to keep up with it, but I still am kind of periodically, checking in with what I'm doing is what I'm doing making sense.
Yeah.
Still in the process of kind of figuring out what my baseline costs are, and, how to best work the gig work to make sure that I'm not going I'm not profitable.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a work in progress. I'm probably maybe a little different than some drivers in the fact that I had some experiences early on with Uber where I had to really adjust my mindset. Like, I don't chase the surge. I just don't. And the boost and the quest goals are now so low that it's not an incentive for me to stay out any longer than than I'm planning on a night in order to try and hit any of those. It's like $20 for, like, I think 40 rides for this week. And, like,
Yeah.
that's not a motivator for me,
Yeah.
So I had an experience, and I'll make this very short, very early on when I was doing Uber, when, to hit their bonuses, you had to be online for 50 minutes of every hour, and you
Yeah.
had to accept 100%, or whatever the percentage was. It was very high, almost 100% of the trips. And I found myself not eating, not going to the bathroom, and I had a little mini nervous breakdown one night and
Yeah.
just lost my shit.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of decided I'm not going to let the incentivization, or as you guys like to call the gamification of these apps, ruin my mental health.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I
for
think I
me,
think the best thing you're doing, I've seen your spreadsheets, the way it's the exact way I would do it, and I've done it for 8 years, is once you know your cost, it makes so much easier to make that instantaneous or that 8-second decision that you have to make, because you are on autopilot at that point, right? You've done it so many times. And I also, if I may give you a tip, is that rejecting trips is okay, right?
yeah,
What I would do is I would use, before, when upfront fare showed up, I had to change my mindset because it's a different thing. I have to do quick math. So what I would do is I would go a busy part of the city, turn the app on, and try to figure out, get my mind faster now, do my math faster, and basically get it to a point that it's like part of my muscle memory, right? You see trips, you reject, but what you're doing is you're taking visual cues from the app saying, oh, this is a good one, this is a bad one. And then you
yeah,
think about it. You accumulate, like, you'll maybe get 20, 30 trips, you'll reject all of them. The only reason you're doing it is to get it in your muscle memory, to get it in your visual cortex, to see, well, this one I would have accepted because of this. And next time you see a similar trip, you don't have to do too much math. You just kind of click and go on with it. But that's like, that kind of exercise is really, really important when they're changing the apps, which they are constantly doing, as you know, right? So let's talk a little bit about, I know you're doing this full time, right?
Yeah.
Are you enjoying it? I mean, look, we hear a lot of complaining in the industry, okay? I know for a fact that there are millions of drivers out there doing this, and they're doing it for their own reasons, and they don't complain as much as the gig workers do. So are you enjoying it? Are you liking it? And are you making enough money to continue being a full-time driver?
I think the short answer to that is yes, I am enjoying it. But, there's always days where you're just like, I do not want to go sit in that car seat and, drive for the next 8-10 hours or, whatever it is. But I think overall, I still am enjoying it. And it's working enough for me at the moment to continue,
Okay.
So I kind of like to reevaluate that on a regular basis and see. I'm in the process of, trying to add some different tools to my tool belt.
Yeah.
I got my Notary Public, passed my Notary Public exam. I'm trying to get authorized to do live scan fingerprinting. So there's other things that I'm trying to add so that I'm not as affected by the whims of gig work. But part of it, I have passengers ask me all the time, like, do you like doing this? And I really do. I've had some amazing encounters with people over the 9+ years that I've been doing this, and I've been very privileged to be able to have conversations with people. Sometimes you see people at their worst moment, and I'm a person of faith, and I've had opportunities put before me, with somebody who's having a really bad day, to be able to give them a word of encouragement. So it's not a charity that I'm doing here. I'm out trying to make money, but as a layer on top of that, I've been very privileged and enjoyed a lot of the interactions that I've had with people. The majority of people are very kind and very, even the drunk ones, are usually pretty fun. The incidence of assholeness
Yeah.
is still relatively small. So for me, it is I'm making a living for my family and help support my family, but it's also the social interaction. And there's friends that I've made that I still communicate on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting. And I'll just add this very short little piece to it. And
Sure.
I think I've shared this with you before. I had
Yeah.
breast cancer a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I've now made friends, having conversations with people because it's in my Uber bio that I'm a cancer survivor, and have been able to, talk to people and, sometimes educate or, give them information about, hey, this is what's next in your journey. And so I try to maximize all aspects of what it is that I'm doing. So
Yeah. You know what? I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think to Uber, Lyft, and all these gig companies, drivers like you or gig workers like you are a credit to these platforms, as opposed to, because you have this, there is this ideology out there. Oh, she's just an Uber driver. No, no, no. She's not an Uber driver. First, she's a human being. Second, she's an amazing person that can even think, in her worst times, of how to service the passenger. And it is your passenger, Uber and Lyft. It is nobody
yeah,
else's. So, we got a couple of minutes left. I know you did the W-2, as we talked about, and you pivoted to, gig work, and you're going to stay until, things change again, which they may, and you may always go back to W-2. But give our audience some advice in closing. I'll give you a couple of minutes, and
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I always do this at the end, because everybody has some advice. It could be right, it could be wrong, it could be applicable to somebody out of the thousands who's going to watch this and whenever we release it. But advice is always something that gig workers should give. I mean, because you're a 9-year veteran, right? If I was just a newbie, who else would I want to listen to other than you? Forget me. You're more of a veteran than me. So give our audience some advice and about anything you want to talk about. You have the floor for 2 minutes. So
So I kind of referenced it earlier. I think the biggest learning experience that I had with this is that to not chasing the surge, not chase the carrot that they're dangling out there in front of to the detriment of what it is that you're trying to do or your own physical and mental health. It can get really, maybe not so much these days, but it can get very tempting to, put that priority over, some self-care. And I think I wish I had learned that sooner. Um, maybe on a humorous note, if you're driving to drunk hours, vomit bags. Like, don't like seriously, preparation is like 90% of the, avoiding really bad things. There's always things that you sometimes can't avoid. But think about the times of day that you're driving, the areas that you're driving in, the types of passengers that you most likely will have, and adjust accordingly. I have a little kit in my car. I got, the vomit bags. I got this, spill pickup stuff. And it's just, and pay attention to what's going on in your car. We got a lot of information coming at us. We're trying to drive, stay safe. But, sometimes there's cues that you could hear behind you when bad things are going to happen. And, I learned that very early on. And so far, knock on wood, my luck's going to run out someday. And just try to enjoy the process as much as you can.
yeah,
It's a job and you're out there, but there's bright spots and good things that you can find in this if you open yourself up to it.
yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So we're going to end it here, but obviously we're always going to stay in touch. And you're in my neck of the woods. Well, not that close, but close enough. And I'm sure our paths will cross again at Herbivore next year, if not sooner. So here's Michele. I'm gonna call her, the quintessential gig worker or pivot lady. I don't know. I will name this episode something special because it has so many pans on so many different fires that this is what a gig worker is. Okay. And the world will know about her pretty soon, once we release this. And I want to thank you. I want you to stay healthy. I want you to stay safe.
Yes.
And please keep in touch and, much appreciated.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of me that easy.
That's Michele right there with her
Thanks
blue
for
hair from
this.
Orange County, California. Thank you again.
Bye.